Viewer questions. Manisha, thanks so much for sticking.
Women may have to approach this somewhat differently. They're looking at much longer lives. So women have to think about working much longer and often get started later.
Manisha joins us to answer some viewer questions. Manisha, thanks so much for sticking around.
Thanks, Tanya.
The first question comes from Kendra, and she writes, I am 47 and getting married for the second time. Should I have a prenuptial agreement? Manisha, what's your thought on prenuptials?
You know, I have to say, Tanya, I am a big fan, and I'll tell you why, especially in situations like Kendra, where she is getting married for the second time. There may be multiple children from previous relationships, assets from previous careers that are being brought in. The idea in my mind behind a prenup isn't to plan out what's going to happen when the marriage ends, but rather to give the couple a formal blueprint for how they're going to handle money as they move forward, particularly in later in life marriages that can also bring a degree of comfort to extended family members, children, and so forth.
Right.
And I'm actually... Yeah, it helps a lot of people, and I even support it for younger couples, again, because it forces them.
It forces them, but even if they don't have significant assets to speak of, do you recommend one?
I do, Tanya, and this is the thing, and this is a little non-traditional, a little controversial, but again, my reason for supporting prenups for young couples that may not have assets is not in the event that the relationship breaks up, but it's yet another framework they can use to get together and set a blueprint for how they're going to handle money during what hopefully will be a really long and happy marriage.
It sort of forces them to have that financial discussion before the marriage, which is when you should be having it anyway.
Precisely.
Makes sense. All right. Ginger sends her question in via Facebook. She writes in, my boyfriend and I want to buy a house. My credit stinks, so we were going to buy it in his name. He makes more money than me. How should we split up paying for this house? That's a good question. It's always tough when one person in the relationship makes significantly less than another. It's hard to decide how to split up big purchases like that.
It is, and boy, do I have a mouthful of advice for Ginger, and I mean this with all kindness, Ginger. So the first thing would be, please think really long and hard about whether or not you want to be buying a house with your boyfriend. If you had said life partner, I would answer this differently, but boyfriend has a bit of a temporal feel to it, and a house is one of the most expensive purchases you will make in your entire life. So I personally don't ever advocate buying a home with somebody who is not a life partner in a committed long-term relationship. The second thing, Ginger, you said that scares me is that your credit is bad and that's why you think about buying it in your boyfriend's name. That is a sign to me that the first thing you want to do is not buy the house, but work on building back up your financial reputation and taking a look at what got you in that situation to begin with.
If she were to buy this house in her boyfriend's name, so in other words, put in some of her own money, I'm assuming she wouldn't have anything to do with the mortgage because her credit is bad. But let's say she puts up some of her own money and it's in his name, then she has no legal, if they were to split up, she has no legal right to that house, does she?
Tanya, you nailed it. So the third thing I'd say to Ginger is, and I hear this from so many women, but my advice would be, if you insist on going ahead and buying this house, do not make any portion of the down payment. If the house is in his name, let the down payment be in his name. Now you have a monthly mortgage payment, and let's say you have unequal incomes. Your household income is $100,000. He makes $60,000. You make $40,000. My recommendation would be you pay no more than 40% of the monthly expenses, and very importantly, you cap that at the lower of 40% of the mortgage payment, or whatever you would have been paying if you were buying or renting an apartment on your own. In other words, you don't want to be supporting a bigger lifestyle than you would have had on your own because you're not going to have equity in that home. And don't put any money into capital improvements, because if you break up or sell the house, you won't get it back.
All such good advice. It boils down to first comes marriage, then comes real estate purchases. Try to keep it in that order. There's really no reason to take on a mortgage before then. I mean, there might not even be a reason to take on a mortgage after marriage. So maybe she should just slow down a little bit right there.
No, I mean, it's, you know, people in an ideal world, it's till death do we part. But honestly, Tanya, what I'm hearing more and more of, it is with debt do we part.
Right. We certainly don't want that to be the situation here. We want them to have a long and healthy relationship. So, all right, here's a question from Lillian. My husband has a spending problem. He's a plumber and makes decent money, but come payday, he gives me roughly half his paycheck and won't tell me where the rest of it goes. Please help. It sounds like this is a couple that needs some real financial communication.
I was going to say, it sounds to me, Lillian, like you've got two sets of issues going on. One is a trust and communication issue. One is a financial issue. So let me address the latter. That's my area. Two things come to mind. First and foremost is, are you incurring any debt in paying your monthly household bills? Because if you are, that's the easiest way to bring up this subject. You can draft out a budget showing exactly how much it costs to run the household per month. Sit down with your husband and say, honey, look, the numbers aren't working. I need to know where the other half is going so that we can support our lifestyle without debt. The second issue is, if you are able to support your lifestyle right now on just half of his paycheck with no debt, first of all, I'm high-fiving you because that's amazing. My next suggestion would be, go to a financial planner, an hourly financial planner. Tell your husband you want to treat him to an hour so that you can sit down together and talk about your future, whether or not you're planning responsibly for your retirement. And in that session, the financial planner should talk to you, if they're a good one, about the totality of your financial picture. How much is being earned, where it's being going, and you can have that conversation in that broader context.
All right, Manisha.
And if that doesn't...
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, I was just going to say, and if that doesn't work, I suggest going on strike. Don't cook or clean or do anything until you find out what happens with the other half.
Very good advice. All right, Manisha, thank you so much for taking the time to answer our viewer questions. And if you have a financial problem you need answered, you can go to our website, abcnews.com/business. Ask Good Money's team of personal finance experts your questions, and we'll do our very best to answer them right here on
ABC News Now. Good to